And as well, oh, there went my camera. Okay, welcome everyone. We're here to discuss a tutorial using move commands and cues in controlled remote viewing. And I'm Teresa Frisch. Hopefully we will be joined by Lynn Buchanan, who is usually out and about and busy, but is usually here with us. I would like to say, hopefully I'll stop the ums, that one of the reasons that I'm doing these tutorials is so that people other than who are remote viewing, other than controlled remote viewing methodology, can see what this methodology does and possibly incorporate it into their own practice. And anyone who does not know anything about remote viewing can also listen to this and get some kind of a working idea if they have no idea of possibly what we're about and some resources that they can be pointed to. So, with all that being said, one thing that we have many questions about are move commands, moving in time and space. And I say time and space because everyone usually associates those two words together erroneously or correctly, but we're technically moving in time. I would like to mention that the commentary and the content of what I'm teaching you or sharing with you came from Lynn Buchanan's training program and can be found in the 7th Sense. It's introduced there, but really to understand it and work with it, a little more information is helpful, and people learn in different ways, whether it's listening or watching or demonstrating. Each person possibly interprets differently, so the format that something is presented could be helpful if it's different or reinforced. I'd like to also mention that this is usually geared now toward the remote viewer working alone. When controlled remote viewing was used in the Stargate unit, there were monitors. When it was developed in the lab, there were monitors. Students now rarely have monitors. That's a luxury. So you're taught to monitor yourself. That's why you're taught to talk out loud, and you're assuming those monitor roles. So Lynn teaches a monitor course. I'm not plugging that course. I'm just explaining that there are rules and regulations and caveats all unto themselves for monitors specifically. So due to time constraints, we are only going to talk about cueing in session when you're a viewer working alone and move commands. A well-formed question to a psychic is a neutrally worded statement. It's formed in a manner which first tasks the viewer or psychic subconscious mind with a problem, then gives the viewer's conscious mind something to do in order to keep it out of the way. It's in 2 parts. The first part is a task to the subconscious mind. The second part is a present tense directive to the viewer or psychic conscious mind. That way you're giving it a specific conscious-minded task. It's been known to increase the accuracy rate of both the RVer practitioner or any formatted methodology, as well as natural psychic. And this is why there's actually a science behind this wording, and it's been shown to help. Instead of just doing anything you feel like willy-nilly, you're actually giving the subconscious something to do and the conscious something to do. A neutrally worded tasking, or on tasking, actually we're doing another tutorial on tasking in a couple of weeks. But neutrally worded format should always be used when you're moving or in tasking any psychic question. Now, standard cues. A CRV standard cue is a verbal statement. It's designed to assist the viewer get closer sight contact. does not necessarily need to have any meaning in and of itself, must be neutrally worded. And standard cues, when we're talking about this, is in phase 2, stage 2. That you are just really establishing sight contact, and you might be stuck, you're getting your perceptions and everything's sort of slowing down and grinding to a halt, and you need to kind of get a little jump start again. So some of the things that we use are, just ask yourself, you can write these words down in a little list, a little cue card for yourself, and if you find yourself sort of just everything's slowing down, just do a mental buzz list and ask yourself colors, luminance, tactiles, temperature, sounds, taste, smells, ambience, luminance. Oh, I got that twice. Essentially, all that is kind of a little boot. Gets the engine going again, and hopefully something will start coming through. Sizes and shapes are dimensionals. Cues of sizes and shapes should not be given until the viewer has already come up with a size or shape descriptor. So that was phase 1 and phase 2, and I know I moved through that in a hurry, but it's really not why we're here today so much. That was fairly simple. Move commands themselves are extremely useful when you're trying to measure things or move in time while you're at the target site. I have this image here, reminiscent of a session that I did with John Glass. He was my monitor, and we were at the Mystic Lake Conference, and oh great, I have a little arrow here. Mishy, I am so sorry. I have no idea why that has just appeared. And to tell you the truth, I've only seen it like once, and I'm not sure how to get rid of it. This trawler is close to the image of my target in this session. You'll notice that at the top there are windows in the boxy area, and when I was viewing, pretty much you could say my nose was jammed up against the pink structure of the cabin. I was getting perceptions, and it would be the perceptions that would be associated with the boxy cabin area. And then John, being my monitor, decided he'd give me a move command. And John also taught me to keep my nose in the target and stay curious and stay moving around and investigate it. So essentially you could say my nose is jammed up against that pink area, even though it was more pointed. And he had me moved me 2 feet to the right or the left and asked me to describe what I saw. All of a sudden, everything changed. Excuse me, I have to cough here, I'm sorry. Everything changed. And I went from things like woody, hard, dull when I knock on it with my knuckles, I'm sorry, to like mountain scenes and trees and far off and vast and like distance. And I even AOL'd, this makes no sense. After I finished that session, it made a lot of sense, because what it was this trawler. And it was sort of an eye-opener. It's like, don't take anything for granted, as if I was, but I was. All of a sudden, I could see through the windows on that trawler, and everything changed because I could see straight through the back of it to the vista out beyond. So that's why I put this image here. So you would have a working example of an association possibly. And hello, Mr. Buchanan.
Hello. Can you hear me?
I can see you. I can see, or I can hear you just fine. I can't see you.
I don't have my camera on, do I?
No. I mean,
okay.
You could. You could if you wanted to, but
I could go dress up and all that, but no.
It's not Halloween yet. while you were away, doing important things, I'm sure, I moved just to get everybody through stage two, just a quick little jump start on cueing, and told them, you know, they could have a card there. And I expanded on the fact that these things are found in the seventh sense. So if this is another way for them to learn, and it's another resource. But if they want more information, they can go to the seventh sense.
Yeah.
So I adjust, and I'm not plugging your book. It's like that's the only encyclopedia textbook we have is from the folks who have actually written books who used it in application.
I know, and that has kind of made me wonder why, because, you know, everybody wants everybody to learn this, but then they say, come pay me and I'll teach you.
Yeah.
And if you want people to learn it, then, I mean, give them the information.
Well, so I've tried to expand upon what we've learned from you in training as well as the seventh sense, because that's where this, I think, pretty much all dials back to. So I know I explained to everybody, I apologize that there's a lot of reading here, but there are people who are downloading these webinars to their iPods and they're listening. They don't necessarily sit there and watch them, but they're listening. So move commands in time. A move command is used when the viewer has achieved some measure of sight contact. It's designated to enhance the viewer's involvement with the site, thereby increasing the sight contact. Move commands by type are called action cues, and an action cue has two parts. This is known as the format for a well-formed question to a psychic. You might want to take note of that. You'll hear that later, which we will reinforce that once or twice. A cue to the subconscious mind is a neutrally worded part of the cue. It can be a project number, a map, the word target, or any one of a set of neutral words agreed upon by yourself and the viewer ahead of time. And we're not addressing monitor language. I have mentioned that that is a course unto itself with its whole set of rules.
Right. Can I jump in here?
But just so you know, we're trying to stick to viewers working alone. That's
right.
the format of tonight. Okay, go ahead.
It can also be a cue to something that you have already gotten in your session. Okay?
We're going to go there.
You know, like you've gotten something as red, you can say move to the red and describe. But it has to be something you've gotten in your session if you're going to do that.
And then there's the cue to the conscious mind, and this is the direction to do something with the information when it is perceived. While this directive statement does not need to be limited to the neutral wording, it does need to be one of a group of directions which has been previously agreed upon by yourself and the viewer. Again, that's from the monitor's manual, but it makes the important point. Examples of this portion of the cue are describe the site, show the size, draw what you see. So that's the cue to the conscious. The second part of that cue does not need to always be given in full, which we're going to have a whole list of examples here in the next couple of pages. I think this is 6 pages long. The second part could be mentally touch your ear to the target. Sound. Then move commands have several aspects. They move the viewer to a new physical or conceptual aspect of the target site. They should be neutrally worded in the language of a well-formed question to a psychic, are formed in a manner which first tasks the viewer or psychic's subconscious mind with a problem, then immediately gives the psychic or viewer's conscious mind something to do in order to keep it out of the way. Always formed in 2 parts. The first part is the task to the subconscious, and yes, I am repeating this. The second part is present tense directive to the viewer or conscious with performing a specific conscious-minded task. I figure if Lynn's repeated it in half a dozen ways in the manual, it's probably worth reinforcing.
That's one of the basic things of teaching, yeah. You
Yep.
repeat it in 10 different ways, and maybe somebody will pick up on one.
And I was explaining that too, because people learn in different ways.
Yeah.
Some people learn by listening, some people learn by reading, some people learn by demonstration. So we'll kind of hit it from all angles. Okay, move commands have been shown to increase the accuracy rate of pretty much any methodology as well as natural psychic. Should always be used in tasking any question. Can aid the viewer in their struggle against AOLs and straight paths. Can direct the viewer's attention back to some previous part of the session. Can help get the viewer unstalled. Can comfort the viewer if they begin to feel insecure. You wouldn't know of any viewers who beat themselves with wet noodles from time to time.
And viewers never feel insecure, huh?
Oh, no. They're always just positive they hit that target, which we're lying through our teeth on that. Everybody's like, oh, I did a lousy job. There is no way. Come to find out that when you think that, that's when you did your best work.
Yeah.
So we're going to have some examples now, and there are 2 examples of documentation in session, which you're going to see a lot of examples with various cues and move commands, and you're going to see one in a matrix that I just threw together really quickly. And then you're going to see examples of well-formed questions to a psychic. And once I go through these, I'll turn this over to you, Lynn, and let you do your excellent job with improv teaching, which that's what happens when you live, eat, and breathe something for about 25 years.
Yeah.
All right, so some examples of move commands, and these need to be written in session so that the analyst or whoever's looking at your session, you yourself later, you know that you were looking at a specific part of that target and you moved to that target to describe that part of the target to describe it. So move 100 feet above the target. Now tell me what you see. Move 100 feet above the target and describe what you hear. Mentally touch the target. Tell me its temperature. Mentally turn around at the site. Report what you are seeing now.
Notice all of those second sentences are present tense, so you could say not just tell me what you see, but tell me what you are seeing. And you can put it specifically in present tense if you need to. But it's always in present tense. You move to the time of the target or to the place of the target, and then your conscious mind works best in present tense, so tell me what you are seeing. Tell me what you are hearing. Tell me what its temperature is, and so on. Sorry, go ahead.
Nope, more examples. Move to a location 500 feet above the target and describe. Move 100 feet further back from the target and describe. Move 1 minute forward in time and describe. Mentally tap on the target. Sound. You can also do that and cue yourself with feel, texture. Mentally push on the target. Feel. You can also do that with ask yourself about weight, density, motion. Mentally clap your hands. Sounds. Turn yourself around at the site and describe. I'd like to jump in there, and Lynn will expand on this, I think. If you have something that you find uncomfortable, you don't want to view it, you want to look away, your conscious mind wouldn't want to look at it, therefore your subconscious doesn't really want to either, there's a little trick. You can say, well, gee, if I could view that part of the target, what would I see? What would I describe? It's just, I'll turn that over to Lynn in a second, but I wanted to get that out there so we didn't forget.
Yeah, let me add one thing here. Mentally clap your hands. Mentally clap your hands. Sounds. Okay, this is extremely useful anytime you find yourself inside of a building or inside of any place. When you wind up at the target, you're no longer outside, you're inside. If you mentally clap your hands, you will get a feeling, an understanding of how big that place is, how empty it is, and so on. And so this actually winds up being a standard cue for any time you move inside of a building, inside of a room, or inside of anything like that. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No sorry, that's extremely important information. Turn yourself around at the site and describe. Mentally put your tongue to it. Taste. The infamous John Glass wanted me to move underneath the fish trawler and taste it. And I balked. My subconscious was not having any part of that. I don't know if I actually wrote yuck, chewy, ew, yuck. I wasn't doing it. You could not get me to taste the bottom of that trawler. I'm happy about that. Mentally sniff it. Smell. Mentally pick the object up. Wait. Then I happened to think I had this ready to go and took it down so I could make this up. I tried to stick just a matrix up here really quickly. Another way to document in session, which Lynn touched on a couple of moments ago, was when you're in session and you want to describe something that you've already got, you put it in parenthesis underneath. Like I wrote biological, and then I put biological underneath it in parenthesis, which is a cue or a documentation tool for the analyst who is looking at this later, and he knows that all the perceptions that are following until you move again are related to that biological or whatever perception that you decided to put up there.
Can I interrupt again?
Oh, sure.
Sorry.
I'm used to it.
Mentally pick the object up. Wait. Okay. If your monitor is telling you to do that, you have to have given the monitor something that already given the monitor that tells him that it can be picked up. All right.
Otherwise, you're leading.
Yeah. If you're doing this to yourself, you don't know if it can be picked up or not. And so when you give yourself the cue to mentally pick the object up, if you can't pick it up, that tells you something about the target. If you can pick it up, then you can judge the weight of it. And so cues like this are not only helpful for moving you to different things at the target and interacting with the target, but they can also give you some pretty good information about the target, such as mentally sniff it, smell. There's a difference between I can't smell anything and it doesn't smell. Okay? And so each one of these commands can actually give you some good information about the target. I'm sorry. Continue.
Nope. Okay. I'm just the secretary.
I know I'll forget to come back to these later.
Well, there's just so much to cover. That's why when we take class, you say that you only get 5% of the information that you need in class.
Yeah.
So, all right. In conclusion, you may have heard this information before. Each question has two parts. The first part is something the conscious mind cannot perform. The second is a task it can perform and is always couched in present time. The present tense of this second part is very important as the conscious mind works best in present tense. The example would be, move 100 years back in time and tell me what happened then. Causes the viewer or psychic to begin analyzing the past in terms of his preconceived notions about it, stereotypes of it, and so on. So people think it's no big deal the way you word something, but it is.
It really is.
Yeah. Move 100 years back in time and tell me what you see now, which I just put the tasking up for next week's target of week discussion. I didn't put now on there. Actually, I should have reviewed this myself, but I just told them to describe. So anyway, move 100 years back in time and tell me what you see now. Cause the viewer to immediately probe its input from the subconscious and simply begin reporting what the subconscious tells it. Move commands should always be written or noted in the remote viewing session to clearly communicate to the analyst and the viewer that the viewer has moved in the session and is focusing on a particular area of the target. The end. All right, now we're just open for discussion, and I can pull up one session of JEDS that shows, like, in session in a matrix where you document the move command. So, anyway, take it away, Lynn.
Well, I just wanted to point out that in the protocol of CRB, there is absolutely no difference in protocol between moving back 10 feet and moving back 10 years. So it doesn't matter whether it's space or time. The protocol of it is exactly the same, and that is the well-formed question to the psychic. And by the way, that's because this works with psychics, non-remote viewers, and so on. And so you say, you give the subconscious something to do. Move to the red thing that I saw earlier in the session. Now, describe what you are seeing or what you are feeling. And you can get creative with these things. It's not only, you know, move to it, but it's also, you saw a large thing, okay? You got that something was big? Fine. Move to the large thing, kick it. And now, what are you hearing? Now, how is it feeling when you kick it? Oh, it hurts my foot, you know, and so on. And so the idea for these is to interact with the target, and the conscious mind can't move in time and all that, but the subconscious does it very easily. So let the subconscious do its job, and then the conscious mind, you just describe what's going on or the result of what you're doing and so on, but present tense. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm looking for that session of JEDS, but I had it open, so that's why I couldn't find it. Just keep going. You're fine. Sorry.
Well, actually, you've done a really good presentation here. That's fantastic. I mean, it's covered it very well.
As I'm rolling my eyes, guess where I got it from? Yeah, I think that the subject matter expert shared it in half a dozen places, and all I did was try to find them all and put them all in one spot. And so that's why there's a lot of repetition, but I thought that doesn't hurt. So, and I've got, there we go, I hope. I'm just looking for that. Jed's been using a lot of move commands. And we're getting a lot of feedback for whatever reason.
Is it mine or?
I think so. Maybe it's mine. Maybe people have been saying I'm pretty low, so I turned my volume up. So it's maybe I'm getting my feedback off your feedback, off your computer.
Okay, let me let me mute myself right in the middle of this, or you start talking right in the middle of your sentence. I'll mute myself and then see if there's still feedback.
Alrighty. Yeah, there is feedback there. And no, there isn't now. So that's okay. It's just probably because I have my volume up.
Well,
okay.
When you said there's not feedback now, it's when I cut my mute off. It was when I muted myself. So evidently my mic is picking up your voice.
Exactly. Okay. And this always just looks different when I pull it up like this. And of course, when I wanted to find something now, I think I'm just going to switch to my desktop, because then I can find it in a heartbeat.
Excuse me, I didn't see who wrote that message to everyone. Something about if you see nothing to say red, then it's probably not, and then the screen disappeared.
Oh, hang on, I can get it back. Chat. That's true, because I wasn't. Okay, if you get nothing associated to say red, is it then maybe not connected? Hang on, Russ, I have to digest that.
Well, like I say, if you cue yourself with red, it has to be something that you've already gotten in your session. So let's say you don't get red. Let's say you get in your session that something is tall. Okay? Later on in the session, you can say, move to that which is tall and describe it, or move to that which is tall, push on it, now what is happening, and so on.
Okay. Jed's, he was retasked in this session, so all of his perceptions, here's one. Move 10 feet above the target, what do you see? And you can see he's in a P4, S4 matrix, and it's in parenthesis in the center of his page. I think other people make notes out to the right depending on your methodology. I've seen that. And then coming down, we have the perception organized, and he wanted to explore that a little more and get some more information. So underneath organized, he put that in parenthesis. And so I know that off to the left now, the new perceptions coming in are directed toward that which is organized. That's what he is investigating at the moment. And then he got another perception further down, clean. It's in parenthesis, and he wanted to explore that. And then he got shortcomings and sterile. He wanted to explore sterile. He didn't write it again, but that's what he was telling me he was doing. And then we took all that together and described what is sterile and orchestrated. So those are some examples of both types of documentation in session.
Right, along with, you know, describe that which is sterile and orchestrated. It would be exactly the same as if he said, move to that which is sterile and orchestrated and describe what you see, feel, taste, hear, smell, how often kick it, push it, you know, bang on it, tap on it, hit it with a hammer, do whatever, you know.
So yeah, he's asking himself all sorts of sensorial things here. Is what noise does the object being orchestrated make? And this was the target last week where we viewed the U2 concert. So anyway, that is an example of one session. I don't think we need to do a whole lot of them. And I'll stop sharing. And there we go. So, more questions, everybody? Anybody? That's the gist of the presentation. And I know it was a lot, and it was repetitive, and I hope it helped you to understand moving in time just a little bit and cueing yourself. You can jump in anytime, Lynn, and I'll mute my mic.
The entire idea behind all of this is to get you interacting with the site. The more you kick it, the more you move around it, the more you smell it, the more you stick your tongue to it and taste it or whatever, you know, the more interaction you have with the site, and that will actually draw you into the site and get you more site contact. And remember, in remote viewing, you're using your body as the translator between your subconscious and your conscious mind. So in all of these things, don't be afraid to taste, smell, hear, feel, you know, and listen to it, and so on, because that will get you involved in the target. And when that happens, you solidify your mind at the target, and you start getting more and more and more information. How are the coordinate numbers related to the target? They're not. How do you come by them? One easy way is to give the date. And do you interact with them in RV? You can, once you give the coordinate, let's say, excuse me, let's say you've got some target and you don't have coordinates for it, give today's date, and then give your viewer number, and that's just data that would go into a database. And then once you have established that as being the coordinates for the site, then at any time, excuse me, at any time that you kind of get lost during the session, you can say, move to target, write the coordinates down, and describe. And so you can even use a move command this way to get you back on target after you have lost site contact. But the coordinates should not have anything to do with the target, because they should not reveal the target in any way. And this is one of the reasons why they quit giving geographic coordinates, because you know, the closer to 90 degrees north and south, the colder it is. The closer to 0 degrees north and south, the hotter it is usually. And so even geographic coordinates can give you information about the target, and you don't want that. You don't want your conscious mind to get in there and say, oh, it's up in the north, it must be cold. Oh, I see dog sleds and all this, you know. So the target coordinates should basically be for databasing purposes only. Now, most people don't database, and so they just give random target numbers. No sweat. Listen, you will be head and shoulders above every other remote viewer if you database your work. If you don't, no sweat. You give random coordinates, that's fine, no problem. Are there cases when interaction is not ideal? Generally, no. Even on those targets where it's something like, you know, blood and guts. Now, I never give those. Blood and guts, murder and mayhem, or something like that. The more interaction you can have with the target, the better the information is going to be. For instance,
Lynn, I think there was a bit different focus with that question.
Okay.
The second part of it says, for instance, what if somebody gets the impression that they shouldn't be in there, or if they feel like they're being watched?
Oh.
And Dan Chevalier was at a target of a missile launch, and he said he knew that there was somebody on the ship. I mean, it was declassified eventually, but he knew they picked up on him, and they didn't like it. So I think that's what this question pertains to.
Yeah. This is actually a simple question, but for the very complex answer. One, if you shouldn't be there, that's tough. You're there. You know, if they don't like it, let them live with it. Another thing is that there are certain targets, and you're not going to get these unless you're working for the CIA or somebody, where they do keep track of whether or not somebody is, whether or not they think somebody is viewing them. For instance, you've got guards walking around a secure facility, and all of a sudden, all of the guard dogs alert, okay? they're not stupid. You know, they know that something has happened, and so what they may do is they may go to Plan B, which makes all the information you got about them, about their plans, wrong. Okay, and so in cases like that, where it is some kind of a classified spying type thing, you would want to immediately back out if you feel like you shouldn't be there. Then there are other tools that you can handle to where you can go there, get all the information you want, and never be detected, even by the guard dogs or anything like that. But that's more advanced tools. But generally, for the targets that you're going to get, you're not supposed to be there, and so on. Well, that's generally tough. You're a remote viewer. I mean, you ask anybody, oh, you're not supposed to be there, you're supposed to be here. Girls' shower room, hey, that's tough. You're not supposed to be there.
We're not gonna go there. Not supposed to be there.
And there are times when you feel like you're being watched. This is an indicator that you're not sticking to protocol, because, well, that you're not a CRV or sticking to protocol. One of the great things about the CRV protocol is that if you stick to the protocol and you do everything according to the way it's supposed to be done, you cannot get caught. And you can spy or remote view on anybody or anything at any time or place, and you will not get caught. They will never notice you. They will never even feel a funny feeling that you're there or that they're being watched or something like that. And so if you get the feeling that you're being watched at the site or that you're being noticed at the site, check your protocol, because you're doing it wrong. And what does P2D? Okay, P2 is descriptors, D is dimensionals, AI is how the target makes you feel, or how you feel about the target, like, ooh, I don't like this place, or something like that. EI is how other people feel about the target. For example, I was doing a session one time, and the target just totally peed me off. I mean, just really got me angry. I went over to the EI column, and I found, you know, people just elated at the target and just happy as they could be. And what I had been given was the target of the people dancing in the streets after 9/11, and thoroughly peed me off. But I mean, they were happy as they could be. There's a T column for things, then a C column for concepts, and stray cat is where you logically think something out, and CS is cat from the signal line, is where on a subconscious level your subconscious figures something out and passes the result to you. Now this is a whole lot more advanced than what you're going to get in basic, you know, just getting gestalts and colors and smells and all that. But when you get into the intermediate level of remote viewing, these things are parts of remote viewing sites, and we teach you how to pick up on these things and how to address them, how to report them, and so on, and how to not pollute yourself with them, by the way. Columns, okay, is very interesting, okay, it's important to know, never thought, okay. This is extremely small print to me, so I'm having a hard time here. I was curious to know if interaction was prohibited ever, and did not expect to get such a detailed answer. Sorry. I don't often do any RV myself, but I want to be able to help someone do RV to the method. I wanted to learn about things that make RV easier or harder to do. we're here to make things easier to do and to do them correctly. And this is one of the reasons Teresa is kind enough to take her time and energy to hold this, is so that we can help people find an easier and more correct way to do this, and a safer way, you know, so that you can get information without exposing yourself to it, and without exposing your emotions to it and all that. So that's what we're here for. And if you have if you have any questions, hey, this is the place to answer them. This is free training here, okay?
I threw in a statement there about standard and ethics. You know, when you ask your remote viewer, supposedly anything and everything it's all good. You know, there's no place you shouldn't be allowed to be. But would you leave the front door of your home unlocked just so anybody could come in? Would be what you wanted? You know, we didn't really address the standards and ethics part of that.
Standard and ethics is a huge consideration anytime you're given the keys to every home and every door in the world. And so, but that's a totally different set of 20 of these meetings talking about ethics.
That's right. But you know, it sort of dovetailed into his question, right, about, you know, whether or not you should be someplace, etc., etc. So.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll read for you, Lynn. Is it still considered RV when you can see and feel things through other people, like quantum jumping? Is there a way to control that? I stay isolated a lot due to this. I find it hard to be around others because I get so much information and it's hard to distinguish from my emotions and theirs.
Yeah, this is one that probably Teresa could answer more than anyone else, because when she first started into this, she would zoom into people and identify with them and all that. And this is one of the protocols. You know, I said that the AI column is how you feel about the site and how it makes you feel, and the SI column, or what Ingo calls the EI column, and Paul teaches EI, I think, is for how other people feel. And if you have those two columns written out on your page, you can touch one column and report your feelings, touch the other column and report the people at the site, their feelings. And the fact that you have this written on the page as two separate columns gives you the ability to jump out of one column and into the other. And that's what it's for, is to protect you from getting sucked into the target. And this is one of the reasons why it's there. Just like Teresa said a while ago, excuse me, that we teach people to write notes on the right side of the page. That's because note writing is done in the left brain mode. You keep everything that's left brain on the right side of the page. Everything that's right brain, like the impressions and all, you keep on the left side of the page. It's not only words that actually matter when cueing viewers, but since your body is the translator between the subconscious and the conscious, even the position of your hand on the paper will have a physical change. I've seen a lot of people who get stray cats and AOLs, and they'll write them down on the right side of the paper, and then they'll leave their pen on the right side of the paper, and guess what? They just keep getting more and more and more AOLs. Well, yeah, move your hand to the other side of the paper, to the left side of the paper, and you'll get right brain stuff. It's amazing how actually intricate this whole science can be and yet how simple it can be once you know the answer. So yeah, the columns in the remote viewing, these are there to help protect you and to build a wall between you and the other person so that you can stay safely on your side and report what you're seeing on their side. You get over on their side and you start saying, you know, we're feeling this, we're feeling that. Hey, you're getting sucked in. You need to get out of there. And so I always call perception jumping. Thank you. Okay, I've come here to learn to gain some control. This is the whole thing. Controlled remote viewing. A lot of people think the military controlled our remote viewing. That's not what it means at all. It means that the remote viewing is controlled by the viewer. And yeah, gain some control over this without the New Age crap. I know what you mean. Yeah, we have, ever since this came out to the public, we've been fighting, we've been shoveling New Age crap. And it keeps piling higher and higher, I noticed.
Thanks for shoveling. Gavin says, thanks for shoveling.
Yeah.
Alice, I would like to, Lynn brought it up, so I would like to expand upon your question just a little bit. And you said, is it still considered RV when you can see and feel things through other people? Back to Lynn's shoveling. Everything that remotely smacks of psychic has gotten shuffled into the column called remote viewing, and that isn't so. And controlled remote viewing is different than other methodologies in the fact that it does have controls. I've not taken quantum jumping per se, so I can't compare those two. But you're saying, is there a way to control that and you're picking up on other people's stuff? I learned when we study controlled remote viewing, Lynn teaches us that the reason that you're doing the session isn't to learn something about the target, it's to learn something about yourself. And
yeah,
I
that's
know
for
we
practice targets, yeah.
Yes, and we preach databasing, that unless you pay attention to what you're doing pattern-wise and find out where your consistencies are and your strong areas and your weak areas for working on. But we found out in a hurry that I am, being a nurse, I suppose it probably goes hand in hand, but I will go for people and go for people in trouble every time. And there would be one person at a target site with a frown on their face, and you would start looking at my perceptions and imagining what that person was feeling based on their body language and their facial expression. And I did that time and time again, and I knew that if there's a person there having a hard time, I'm probably going to pick up on it. So I learned that about me, and in the columns, those columns which we explained to you are in intermediate level viewing, they're not in basic. So once you get to work with those columns and you're learning about what other people at the site are feeling, I am only allowed to hang out in that column, as we put it, for about 4 perceptions, and I have to get out. Other people who are not possibly as emotionally attuned, my personality type is INFJ. So I have a huge feeling component in my Myers-Briggs personality type. So anyway, I'm only allowed to hang out in that column for about 4 perceptions versus other people who seem to have the constitution or thick skin of a tortoise shell, and you know, somebody could be crying and it wouldn't bother them a whole lot, and it's like no blood, no foul. So anyway, Alice is a healthcare professional herself and a qualitative analysis to boot.
Can I throw in something here? I'm not sure what quantum jumping is, but I know that some teachers teach deep mind probes and things like that.
Oh, God.
And, oh, I know it. One even teaches it on the first day of class when students are totally unprepared for anything like that. And let me just give you an example. I was asked to find a missing child one time, and I found the child, and the child had been taken by a paramilitary group, and this paramilitary group had a whole pen outdoors full of children, and they used them for sex, and they used them for, you know, serving them and everything else.
And
these
labor
kids,
and target practice.
And target practice. When they got too sick to have anything, you know, have any other use, they used them for target practice. And anyway, the police department that had asked me to work on this asked me to stick with it and describe the surroundings and all that. Well, I started getting attached to the different children and so on, and started getting sucked in, of course. And I kept the walls up so that I didn't feel personally all of the things that were happening to them, and yet I still would go back day after day and see what had happened. And when you jump into a person, or when you get a target like that, you can mentally detoxify all the emotions. You can mentally get away from it. You can say, that was them, that wasn't me, and all that. And you can depart from it every way you want, but you never get it out of your memory, okay? And quantum jumping into a person, what if that person's an axe murderer or a child molester or something? Do you really want to jump in and start having a mind meld with that person? Guess what you're going to come back with? You will come back with not only the memory of having killed someone, but you will come back with the memory of the pleasure that person had when they killed someone. And you don't want that stuff. Watch out for a lot of this New Age crap that's out there, because people will make up their own stuff, and without databasing it to see if it works, without databasing it to see what happens to the viewer when they do this stuff, they'll start charging people to learn it. And a lot of that stuff that's out there, you don't want to learn. Just be extremely, extremely careful, okay?
And I'd like to throw in one thing, if I could.
Yeah.
I know that I'm just a rookie here, but we teach that you aren't jumping into that person. You're observing. You are able to observe what's going on at that site without, I've heard people actually say that to view something, they get into a person's head and view it through their eyes. And, you know, that's like dirty laundry. Nobody wants to hear that. You're teaching what? No, that's not ethical. We don't teach that. I'm not speaking for anybody else. But if I found out that somebody's getting in somebody's head like that, you're done with me. We're done.
Yeah. And, you know, you've heard TMI, too much information. When you get into a person mentally, you may get way too much information, and you may not even know it on a conscious level. Another thing, this is in my book, of course, and I was driving home one Friday afternoon after doing a rather large project that day, and this fellow is in the military, and I was going through my mind on what I had to do that weekend, and the list was, you know, mow the grass, wash the car, kill my wife, and such as that. And I went back and I said, what? And I had, there was a government leader that we were getting the plans and intentions on that day, and that was my project. And I had picked up that there was something odd, and it was something that wasn't tasked, so I just ignored it and moved on. What I didn't realize was that it had stuck with me, and that weekend, that government leader's wife died under extremely serious, mysterious circumstances because he killed her, you know. And that one part that I had not acknowledged had actually stuck with me. And I know that I would not have killed my wife that weekend, but it was there. You really want to be careful with this stuff. Stay out of people's minds. You don't know what's in their mind, and you know, it's like jumping into a pit. If you don't know what's in that pit, don't jump. Okay.
Great questions, everybody.
Yeah, very great questions. Alice says, I lost it here.
Said she tries to stay away from people because of...
yeah, people with their unanswered questions.
Well,
if you do sessions for someone, find out what their question is.
Actually, that was me. She was saying she was
okay.
feeling relief from having her questions answered here. And I said, that's one of the reasons I'm here, because...
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I came to remote viewing because there was no place else to look. I had all this, as Lori Williams would say, my psychic was leaking out all over the place. And up until I studied remote viewing, you know, psychic that was crazy people. You know, that didn't exist. We locked people up for talking like that. Well, guess what? There's a question from Gavin. What is the most dramatic amount of distance you asked a viewer to move?
Ingo was asked to view what the Saturn probe was going to find. The day that they fired the Saturn probe, it was going to take 17 years to get there, and they wanted to know what it was going to find when it reached Saturn. He described it 17 years ahead of time and was accurate on it. I found out not too long ago that a session that I did 20 years before, I forget which one of the Mars probes it was, what it was going to find. I had accurately drawn a picture of what it was going to find, a manufactured object, and was accurate on it. And that's 20 years in the future. And so from here to Jupiter, it's probably the longest distance. 17 to 20 years into the future, hey, no sweat. And in fact, going back into the past, you can go hundreds and hundreds of years back into the past, and many times on an archaeological dig, they'll find some artifact, and they'll say, what in the world is this, you know, and they think, oh, we don't know what this is, so this was obviously religious. I don't know why archaeologists do that. But anyway, you take the object, you remote view its daily use at, 2,000 or 3,000 years in the past, and you can tell them what it is, what it was used for. So there doesn't seem to be a distance in space or time that has limits. Basically, the limits on how far you can go in space and time govern the feedback, but not the viewing. So you know, you say, okay, you know, on some planet going around a star in Orion, what's you know, well, you can view that, but I mean, you're not going to get feedback, not in our lifetime anyway. And so the limits are on the feedback, not on the viewing.
What was it you just got feedback on with that article? Was it the Mayans? Which ancient civilization was that?
Oh yeah, it was the Aztecs, I think.
Aztecs.
Why their cities emptied out overnight, and I did a single session, and this is a thing that has disturbed archaeologists for years. And what I found out was that the government that they had at the time, they didn't have any money. They didn't have the concept of money, and so everybody paid their taxes in service. And the cities weren't actually cities. That was where all the farmers came to give their 2 weeks of service and then went home. Well, at some point, the government had failed to the point where it didn't notify who was to come next. So somebody spent their 2 weeks, they went home, the next day nobody new came, and the, quote, cities appear to have emptied out overnight. And this was tasked to me by an archaeological researcher, and so he found out that that was actually the thing. And there was an article that came out in one of the papers last week that confirmed it. The fact that the Aztecs, the Mayans, and all that did not have money, and so farmers and local people would just gather in a place to give their tax in service. Then they'd go home.
So that's some feedback that took a really long time, but you actually did that session and answered that question.
Yeah, and the archaeologist didn't come back and give me the feedback for 2 years.
I think that article was actually came out in maybe January, February. It was the first part of this year.
Oh, did it? Okay.
Yeah.
Somebody alerted me to it last week, and so that was the first time I'd seen it.
Yeah. Brilliant work and feedback. Yes, it was.
One of the things that you have to realize in remote viewing is that you have to report what you get. And if what you get doesn't make sense, a lot of people will say, oh, that's crazy, I'm not going to report that. Listen, report it, okay? You can trust your subconscious mind, all right?
I was just looking for that article. And I can put the link up here in about a split second so people can read about it. But,
yeah, I've got a link to it in one of my emails. I don't know where it is. I need to download it and put it with that thing.
That's okay. I just pulled it up, so I'll find it while you're talking.
Okay, in my filing cabinet, I have all of the unclassified sessions that I have done, and they're in my database and all that. And there have been many times when somebody will call me and say, hey, you did a session for me 5 years ago. That's fine. I can pull it out I can look it up by their name or by what the target was or by whatever, and find out the coordinates for it. When I find out the coordinates for it, I can go to my filing cabinet, pull it out, and we can talk about it. And listen, never underestimate the importance of simple databasing. Databasing will tell you everything about yourself.
Well, that one session with John Glass monitoring me, right there. It was, I actually AOL. This makes no sense because he moved me in that trawler. I was standing in the front of it to where the window was, and all of a sudden my vision wasn't blocked, and I could see all the mountains and everything behind. And I literally wrote, "This makes no sense," and kept on going.
Yeah, that's what you have to do.
Yep. And no wonder I couldn't come up. I was trying to Google that, and it's the Inca.
Incas, okay, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. So yep, that's some actual remote viewing in action, and you really should probably try and publish that, but who am I?
Well, I think that's in my book, but
Who knows?
I don't know. That when, you know, this is what ticked me off. I have never read my book, by the way it is, because when I gave it to Simon & Schuster, they decided that the whole purpose of my book was entertainment for New Agers anyway, and so it didn't really matter what was in it, and so they changed a lot of what was in there and cut out 150 pages of what I think is really important information. And when I complained about it, they said, well, they owned it and they would do it however they felt.
Yeah.
So I will never go with Simon & Schuster again.
I pulled up that article if anybody wanted to look at it. So there you go. Okay. Winding down a little bit here. Oh.
On the Pels, can I ask a question on the Pels? What are the Pels?
Hang on, Stephen. I think you have a typo there.
Yeah. A question on the mic? Can you give him a mic?
Yeah. Stephen, go ahead. I took your mute off. Go ahead.
Testing.
You're good.
Want to ask a question about ictograms.
Uh-huh.
Because of my disability, I don't think I can draw an ictogram in the time.
Right.
It's officially allowed. How would I overcome that?
Okay, I need to explain. Stephen has a disability which causes him to have weakness and he can't draw very well or write. And so he's having trouble drawing ideograms, and is there anything he can do to overcome that?
Well, actually, yeah. There are two schools of thought on ideograms. One is that it's like wax on, wipe off. You get standard ideograms for standard things, like water will always be a wavy line, space will always be a circle, or man-made will always be something with an angle in it or something like that. The other school of thought is that that the simple act of drawing an ideogram is in itself a type of communication. And so it doesn't matter what you draw. This is why we tell everybody, you know, my man-made has an angle in it. Yours doesn't have to. My water is always a wavy line. Yours doesn't have to be. It's a language, it's a physical language that connects your subconscious and your conscious mind. Well, the fact is that it does not have to be a structured language. Simply, you know, taking the coordinates, even just by saying the coordinates out loud and then touching the paper, can actually be a line of communications between your conscious and subconscious mind. And so you get the coordinates, you touch the paper, and you don't even need to draw an ideogram. The simple act of touching the paper sets up that line of communications. You touch the paper and you immediately see what you feel, what you taste, what you hear, and so on. And so even the ideogram itself is under your control. This is why it's called remote viewing that you control. And so yeah, don't worry about that. If you can't standardize the ideogram, hey, no sweat. simply touching the paper will let you get a feel, a smell, a taste, or something like that. So just go with that. It's no problem. It's certainly not something to worry about.
Did that help, Stephen?
Yes, it did. I'm still thinking about whether to learn and how to learn with the money available to me.
Right. Stephen really wants to study. Where he's located, there aren't too many trainers, and he has some physical handicaps that he has to work with. So these are all considerations that he goes over.
You're in London, aren't you, Stephen?
Well, do you know Garrick Airport, then?
Yeah.
I'm a few miles south of Gatwick in Cookfield.
Oh, okay.
Sussex.
Okay. I thought at one time I'd found out that you were in London.
I can get to London from where I am.
Yeah. Have you ever talked to Daz there?
Yes, he's in the bar.
By the way, I've gotten many calls from you, Stephen, and I've probably never answered. That's because I never answer a phone. I have basically phone phobia, and I don't answer phones. I can talk over Skype and things like that, but I never answer a phone. I just, that's... Talking on the phone for 10 minutes is absolute torture for me, and so I just stay away from phones. I never monitor, I never go in and see who called or anything like that, because a phone to me is just an instrument of Satan itself. I don't know how I got that, but I just cannot deal with phones.
Well, I've had for a long time got an invitation on Skype for you.
Well, I think he tends to turn off everything when he's on the computer just so he can get his work done. Otherwise, all his instant messages go off, his phone rings, Skype rings. So
I don't even hear them.
Yeah.
Basically, I turn off my brain and my ears and everything else,
Yeah, just so you can get something done. All right, we are coming up on an hour and a half. Any more questions?
Does anybody have any answers?
That would be refreshing.
I think the one main thing out of what we've covered so far is be very, very careful about mind melding with anyone at the target, because you don't know what's in their mind, and just don't expose yourself to that, okay? When we have the medical applications class for healing, in that class you have to access a person mentally, and it has all kinds of tools that will help you protect yourself from getting sucked into that person. And in fact, I'd say over half the class in the medical apps is not about healing, but it is about protecting yourself from getting sick along with them. And so, stay out of people's minds. You don't know what's in there, and probably you don't want to know.
Okay, well, I think the questions have sort of dwindled, and we're at an hour and a half, so we're probably going to wrap it up. We're back next week.
One other thing, Alice said lots of questions, but I'll wait. Alice, what you might want to do is drop some of those questions to Teresa, and that will let her plan some of the future things. That would give her some help.
Thanks. A little vote of confidence there. And Eveline's saying thank you. She's here. It's the middle of the night. She's over in England as well. She's in the UK. So I'm so sorry about that. I wish I could do it at a better time frame for you folks.
I was supposed to go over to England this last summer to teach classes up in Manchester and down in London, and my wife got sick, and so I just had to call off classes. But there is a very good teacher in Dublin, Paul O'Connor, and you'll find him on some of the lists here. And he's a very good teacher, and he's a whole lot closer and more available too.
Thanks for the folks. There's Russ chiming in, and thanks to all of you for coming. Let other viewers know that we're here. I'm sort of wrapping up the tutorials. We've had quite a few of them, and I'm continuing the target presentations. And actually, next week's target is about moving in time. It's just an exercise. You're going to do your normal session, and in session at some point when you think you have good sight contact, give yourself a command to move to the designated time and describe. And we're just practicing, and that's the whole focus of that target exercise, and then we'll compare the sessions next week. And again, if you want to see what's scheduled, just go to aiis.webex.com, and the schedule of everything that's up is there. And once you register, I get you into that address book database, and you'll get notices when I schedule new things. So that's the point. And glad you guys could come, and I hope you found it helpful. And with that, I think it's time to say goodnight, Gracie. Good night, John Boy. And we'll see you next week. Good night.
Good night, Mrs. Calabash, wherever you are.
There we go.
That brought
and
better
Carol Burnett used to pull on her ear, say hi to her mom.